Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another one of Mr. Lang's vlogs. Today we're going to be talking about the rise of dictatorships. Again, how three people, technically four, rule the world. Now, how do we let three people rule the world? Well, altogether there were five leaders who rose up following World War I. We have Stalin in the USSR, Adolf Hitler in Germany, Emperor Hirohito and Prime Minister Hideki Tojo in Japan, and Francisco Franco in Spain. Now, these countries suffered from political and economic problems after World War I, hence why these people came to power. Now, with this, they have different types of government. First one is called a dictator, which is a person exercising absolute power and unrestricted control in a government without hereditary succession, basically meaning they're not a king. And they usually have a totalitarian state, which a totalitarian state is a government which maintains complete control over its citizens, and individuals themselves have no rights whatsoever, and government suppresses any type of opposition there is towards that. Other types of governments we have democracies, again ruled by the people, originally from ancient Greece, with the Republic, just like Rome as well. Now government's controlled by its citizens, very similar to what we have here in the United States today. And we also have communism rises out of this. Communism is a government system where economic and social activity is controlled by the totalitarian state and dominated by a single political party. Now, with this, we have other different types of government that have come up that you may not have heard of before. One being fascism. Fascism is a political movement that consists of a strong centralized government headed by a powerful dictator. This emphasizes the state over all the individuals. So the state as a whole is emphasized over all the individuals. It also allows for private enterprise and ownership, similar to, basically capitalism that we have here in the United States. Again, Mussolini puts it best when he says, everything within the state, nothing against the state, nothing outside the state, because the masses should only believe, obey, and fight. And that was his motto. And that is more of a militarist state, which is basically the military is controlling all the power in the government, which is very similar to what they had in Italy with Mussolini. So again, to give you a nice little graphic organizer right here, this is exactly how, and if you wanted to pause it and copy it down, that'd be good as well to help you out as well. Now, how do we let these three people rule the world? Okay, because as North America struggled through the Great Depression, and other countries too, especially in Europe, struggled with these political upheavals, how do we get these three guys ruling? Well, most European economies hadn't actually recovered from World War I. They had high unemployment, and again, food shortages, crime running rampant as well in their countries, and some saw communism as the answer. Again, when people are down and out, they're going to look for anything to get to a better place than where they are then. And of course, communism seemed like it was a better place. It seemed like the answer to their economic and political problems. But others wanted a strong military or fascist government to restore law and order. The result? We have the rise of these leaders, who end up becoming dictators that suppress any opposition against them. And again, our first one up is, of course, Stalin in the Soviet Union, or Russia, who was communist. Again, it wasn't called Russia back then, but just to let you know where it is, it's in Russia. So, again, Joseph Stalin took over from Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, who originally started the communists and the Bolsheviks in the USSR. He was ruthless and cruel. Again, he did many things like Stalin's purges that are very famous. He literally purged, and basically, he purged all people that were seen as an enemy to the Communist Party or the Red Army. Now, he controlled a totalitarian state. His economic and agricultural policies led to the major food shortages and the death of 30 million Russians. This guy is horrendous. Again, Stalin used assassination of the political enemies and rigged elections to gain power. On the outside, he looked like he gained power legally, but he didn't. His power was rigged. And he used the Red Army and the secret police to crush anyone who opposed him. Now in Italy we have the fascists, the leader Benito Mussolini, or El Duce. Mussolini pledged to restore Italy and rebuild an empire similar to the Roman Empire. And he was appointed prime minister by King Victor Emmanuel III, who granted him dictatorial powers. He gained power legally. Now, he became a fascist state that opposed all democracy, and also a very nationalistic state, which relied on the military and the secret police, which were the black shirts, to maintain absolute control, including control of media and the use of the propaganda to spread their ideals. Now, nationalistic state, again, plays off of nationalism, the pride that they are Italian and should restore to the Roman Empire. Again, that's what he said. That's what he preached. Now, he did limit freedom of speech. He arrested political opponents to get rid of competition. He restricted voting and forbid other political parties. He taught total obedience and how to be an ideal family man. He ends up invading Ethiopia in 1935 because during imperialism, remember, Ethiopia and Africa, when everyone was trying to scramble for Africa, Ethiopia was the only one that actually beat out Italy and were independent. So he goes back for revenge, and he gets it. Now America decides to embargo both sides and stay completely neutral. We see that stuff's going off over in Europe, and we really don't want any part of it. We're isolated from it. Alright, in Spain we have fascists. The leader, General Francisco Franco. He's a fascist leader who had attacked and overthrew the Spanish government and caused basically a civil war versus the elected government that was there. Franco had the military support of Hitler and Mussolini, and the USSR backed the other side, the loyalists, okay, calling themselves the Popular Front. And Stalin declares communism and fascism enemies at this point because of this. Now Japan was militarist. Leader, Emperor Hirohito, with the Prime Minister Hideki Tojo really calling the shots. Japan's economy was dependent on world trade. There's not much that could grow in Japan. So the crisis in the economy with the global depression allowed military leaders to promise more land in Japan for raw materials and natural resources to be less reliant on the imports of other countries. So they invaded Manchuria, China in 1931. And this is where we get Nanking, or the Rape of Nanking, where they bombed and captured it in full-scale war with the Chinese. This is where Imperial Japan is really born. And the League of Nations condemned it, but didn't do anything to prevent it. So Japan walks right out of the League of Nations. Now in Germany we have the fascists. We have Adolf Hitler, the Führer. He and his Nazi party were elected in 1933, and he became Chancellor of Germany. Again, legally. He abolished all of the political parties and unions, and he claimed that he had the solutions to bring Germany out of the Great Depression and restore its glory that it once had, prior to World War I. He resented the war no cause and paying those reparations of damages from the Treaty of Versailles. So he ruled as a ruthless dictator with intimidation, fear, and severe racism. So he served in World War I, a little about him, earned the Iron Cross. Nazi Party was one of the many political parties in Germany before Hitler gained power. He just happened to kind of stray with them. And Hitler tried to overthrow the government during the Beer Hall Putsch. However, he was sent to jail. This is where he dictates his Mein Kampf, My Struggle book, and is soon published, which is when he basically plans to restore Germany to its power. But in it, he blames Jews, the November criminals, and the communists for Germany's decline. And so they set fire. The Nazis set fire to the Reichstag building, which is basically their parliament, and blamed the fire on the communists, because that was Hitler's biggest competitors. He asked for a vote in the Opera House to get full dictatorial powers. He does. That's where they end up going, was the Opera House afterwards. He calls this government the Third Reich, because this is the Third Reich. Again, the Second Reich being the Weimar Republic, the First Reich being under the original formation of Germany with Otto von Bismarck. Now, he also outlawed other political parties and murdered the competition using the secret police, the brown shirts. And he prohibited Jews and non-Nazis from holding political offices. He creates an anti-Semitic feeling in Germany. Again, anti-Semitism is a hatred or discrimination against Jews. He then asks for a vote in the Opera House that he gets full dictatorial powers, which he does, and he gets this again legally. Now, he uses the Jews as a scapegoat for all of Germany's problems. And again, a scapegoat is someone who, or a group in this case, which is blamed for something that they didn't do. And so what ends up happening is Kristallnacht, which Kristallnacht is a night of broken glass. It was November 9, 1938, and this is when we have Nazi thugs that have burned down synagogues and destroyed Jewish businesses, simply because they're owned by a Jewish individual. Okay? And where is the U.S. in all this? Isolationism. We are on the other side of the world, and we want nothing to do with this. Alrighty. We're going to have a great activity in class that has to do with stations. It's going to be similar to this. That's going to get a little bit more into detail than we have here. Again, if you have any questions, you know where to get me and where to email me. Again, this is Mr. Lang signing off. I'll see you in class.